All right, today we're going to dive into one of the hottest and most rapidly evolving topics in the financial world, cryptocurrency regulation. As governments around the globe race to catch up with the pace of innovation, the questions remain, how do we strike the right balance between oversight and opportunity? Join us live is someone right at the heart of this conversation is Aaron Tang, APAC General Manager of Luno, one of Malaysia's leading digital asset exchange. With over 1 million users locally, Luno has been a key player in shaping the crypto landscape here and across the region. I want to say thank you very much, Aaron, for joining me finally. From online, you have finally managed to come again to the studio.
Thank you.
Talking about the cryptocurrency, we can say that probably the most thing people will come to mind, what about the regulation? Is it safe? Is it risky? And talking about the regulations are rapidly evolving across the globe, how do you see the current regulatory landscape for cryptocurrency shaping up internationally?
When we look at international, Nina, we can't avoid looking at the US, given what has happened over the last couple of months. So if I just rewind a little bit, so Donald Trump took over as the president, or he was announced as the incoming president, and he's known as a pro-crypto president. So he's actually quite different from previous administrations. And if you look at some of the acts that have been proposed in the US, for example, the Bitcoin Act last year and then the Genius Act this year, I'll give a little bit of context on what the Bitcoin Act is. The Bitcoin Act is an act that proposes that the United States will hold a Bitcoin reserve, meaning it is part of their treasury. And then the Genius Act is actually giving some guidance along how stable coins should be regulated in the US. So I think these are some indications of what is happening in the US and also globally, because I think governments tend to see what each other are doing. And I think locally we do expect that there will be some further regulations and clarity along digital assets, given our Prime Minister, Dato' Anwar, has also said that he's very interested to promote this kind of digital assets.
And he also called for clearer guidelines within the cryptocurrency. In your view or POV, what a well-structured regulatory framework look like for Malaysia crypto market? We can say very suited also for Malaysia's landscape.
Yeah, the thing to remember about Malaysia is we actually have quite a good regulatory regime regarding digital assets and crypto already. So kudos to our regulators. So let me give you some examples. For example, crypto exchanges are already regulated. So my company, the company where I represent, we are already regulated, meaning people can buy and sell crypto. Custodians are also regulated in Malaysia, meaning that if a company wants to hold and store digital assets for customers, they can do so. And then also fundraising for crypto is also regulated, meaning if I want to raise funds using digital assets, I also have a framework for that. Now, I will say that there are some areas for growth. So, for example, I think everyone is waiting regarding stable coins or payments regarding digital assets. That is something that there's not yet a lot of guidelines on. And then I think something quite interesting in the recent year is that the Securities Commission is looking to regulate, we call it tokenized securities, or rather real-world assets. So for example, let's say a Maybank stock or Tenaga stock or any stock, if we want to make it a token, how do we regulate that?
And it's not easy. Probably you see the difference of trending within the cryptocurrency in the market from pre-pandemic, during COVID, and the behavior or the patterns within the cryptocurrency market probably a bit different now. Now with you share just Donald Trump with the pro-Bitcoin, and we know about the compliances play a key role in building trust, especially in a very high-risk sector like cryptocurrency. Maybe share with us throughout the whole journey, how does Luno ensure a compliant trading environment for over 1 million Malaysian users? Probably you can share with us this step or process before and post-pandemic.
Yeah, thanks, Dina. So I just want to bring back to what you said, pre and post-pandemic. So we were regulated starting 2019. 2019, just before the pandemic, right? Pandemic was March 2020.
And firstly, congratulations, you made it to this year.
Thank you. So before pandemic, I would want to look at that from, I would say, pre-regulation, because 2019, 2020. So before regulation, we were actually active already in the market. So when we say pre-regulation, meaning that we were operating under a regime where it was a bit unclear.
Okay.
However, even at that point, we were already operating according to the highest standards. And let me share some of the standards that we operated even before the guidelines. So, for example, we had to identify all our customers. So the official term is KYC, know your customers. And then we had to do things like monitoring transactions, making sure that people are not sending crypto to, say, terrorists or illegal organizations and so on. And then besides that, we, of course, have to make sure that the market is operating under fair rules, meaning that people are not manipulating the market and so on. So we actually had all those things in place before the pandemic itself. And then when the regulations came, we were pleasantly surprised because many of the things that we were practicing were also in the regulations. And then that's when the licensing process happened. Following that, we were able to obtain the first license. And then we've been operating under the license regime ever since. So I think the things that we've been operating, I want to talk about a couple of standards. So we've spoken about the compliance standards, for example, the transaction monitoring, and then making sure that people are not sending illegal transactions. But there's also, I would call it operational procedures to make sure that our employees are safe and our customers are safe. So I'll give you some examples. For example, in terms of data privacy, we follow according to the PDPA, the Malaysian privacy standards. And of course, being a UK-based company, our HQ, we also follow some of the principles of GDPR, which is the European standard for privacy.
It's not an easy journey, but you made it through this far. Just before pandemic, you started your business and then going into pandemic. So we can say this is a story or journey of how you make it through one of the biggest struggle of this decade, actually.
Definitely.
Maybe some investors are still hesitant, citing regulatory uncertainty, because when there's uncertainty, they need more clearer guidelines, clearer standards, procedure. And what are some of the steps that Luno has taken over the years, not to just meet but exceed their regulatory expectation locally and even across the whole region?
Yeah, when it comes to things like security and standards, we take it very, very seriously, Nina. So, for example, on our platform, we operate on the highest standards of security. I'll give you some examples. For example, we pre-screen crypto sends. So if you want to send crypto outside of Luno, we pre-screen the addresses. So we maintain a blacklist of known, for example, terrorists or known scams and so on. So we actually block crypto sends to those kind of addresses. We also have security standards such as the trusted devices, or maybe many people call it like the secure to you kind of platform. So we also maintain those kind of standards. I just want to say also that we have what we call a proof of reserves. So a little bit of story.
Okay.
I think 2021, a couple of well-known crypto exchanges outside Malaysia, they actually ran into problems. So a very well-known one is FTX. It actually eventually went into bankruptcy. Now, today in Luno and several other crypto exchanges, we have what you call proof of reserves, meaning we actually get someone who is, for example, an audit company or something. They come, they actually look at our books, they look at all our crypto wallet holdings, so they can give certainty and trust to the public. Hey, this company actually has all the crypto that it claims to have. Now, I would say that we are proud to be the leading one in Malaysia to actually have this proof of reserves. Okay. And I think it gives a lot of trust and certainty to customers.
And moving forward, definitely we are expecting so much more from cryptocurrency and much more on the clearer guidelines, standard operations, SOPs. What some of the, can you help us identify what some of the future, or you foresee some of the challenges that might come up within the compliance practice? Is it so we can be really ready when there's a future problem or challenges within cryptocurrency markets? And then these are some of the trends that we need to take a look at, and so we can make sure or ensure that our regulatory system are also ready. Yeah.
So I'll start with the future trends. I think everyone today is talking about stablecoins. So stablecoin is basically a crypto asset that's tied to a currency. So for example, maybe one day there'll be a Malaysian ringgit stablecoin. currently in the market, USD stablecoin is probably the most well-known. So I think stablecoins will be an interesting one to see how the regulators want to integrate that to the financial system. Apart from that, we've also spoken about tokenized securities and real-world assets. I think that's going to be a continued trend because more and more assets, they're calling it tokenized on the blockchain. Even the largest asset managers such as BlackRock are talking about tokenized assets. And if we talk about like local compliance, regulation, and challenges, I just want to pull one from the current digital asset exchanges that we're facing today. I think today still we lack really, really good integration with the banking system in Malaysia. So, for example, many digital asset exchanges sometimes face problems with getting banking facilities and so on. So, I would say that's more of a wish list for the industry. If we have regulations or support from the banking industry for the digital asset exchanges, that would be amazing because it would allow more Malaysians to have access to digital assets.
And that is one of the biggest, most important component when talking about the cryptocurrency. Probably lastly, what's your advice in the future? How do you see this clear regulation? Maybe people don't understand how a clear policy or we can see the guidelines that will also ensure from safety more than jump into risk. This is especially for the long-term growth. How do you see, what are some of the impacts that maybe some people out there, especially business, doesn't understand that clearer regulations can impact innovation in the long run? Maybe some of them said this regulation will block us from creativity or innovation, but what's your thought on that?
I think ultimately regulation, it gives clarity. So it's like if you're playing a game, you need to know the rules, right? Because without knowing the rules, then it's very unclear. And I think we have several examples of how regulation gives clarity and it leads to progress. Example number one, Malaysia is actually quite fast in regulating digital asset exchanges. We were actually faster than Singapore. Back in 2019, we already have guidelines. So actually with these guidelines, it helps develop the industry, meaning that local Malaysians have access to digital assets in a safe way. So for example, if those regulations do not exist, people today cannot buy from onshore exchanges. They have to go to somewhere offshore.
Okay.
So I think apart from that, right, if your question around like security and so on, I think the sort of trick to that is let the regulated industry handle all the compliance, all the regulations with the regulators. I would like to see the end users, for example, consumers and businesses. If you do business with the digital asset exchanges that are regulated, then you're going to be compliant and you know that it's safe and secure.